Tyler and Emily's feelings finally ignite, but how will this secret romance affect their relationships with Skyler? Does Tyler truly care only for Emily's happiness? Want to know if Tyler and Emily's secret will change everything? Subscribe to our channel and don't miss a moment. Chapter 38, Emily's POV. Well, what are you doing here? I say, standing up out of shock. There's no way that he heard me. How did I not notice that it was him who sat down next to me? This can't be happening right now. Tyler also stood up and took a step closer to me. I saw you running from your room and I figured it had something to do with Skyler, he said, putting his hands in his pockets. We stood in silence for a while. Tyler wouldn't meet my gaze and I was too scared to say something. The wind picked and blew Tyler's hair away from his face. He looked hurt, and just as I was gonna say something, he beat me to the punch. Why didn't you say something? He said, his gaze meeting mine. I was suddenly frozen to the ground. His eyes held so much pain, and here I was not able to find my voice. His brown eyes bore into mine and a tear fell down my cheek. Because it was too late. I whispered. I looked down at the ground and I couldn't stop the words that came flying out of my mouth. Skyler always gets what she wants. Doesn't matter who she hurts. I said in a low voice. When she started going out with you, I thought it was just going to be one date. But things started getting serious and I knew it was too late. Skyler was happy with you and I didn't want to ruin that, so I took a step back. I didn't want to meet his eyes in case I was right. What about your happiness? What about mine? He says, taking another step closer to me. I forced myself to meet his eyes and he was confused. He was so close to me, his scent was engulfing me. His eyes traveled around my face, looking for the answers I was so scared of saying. You were happy too, I said, sadness written all over my face. He took one more step towards me and his figure was towering above me. He tucked a strand of hair behind my hair and I could swear I felt sparks running through my body. I brushed it off thinking it was just the wind or how much I liked Tyler that I badly wanted him to be my mate. I wasn't happy, he said, letting his arm fall to his side. We were constantly fighting and she swore that you had something to do with it. I didn't want anything to happen to you. I see the way she treats you, Emily. You deserve better than that. I can give you that, he said in almost a whisper. My heart stopped beating for a moment, my mind was going everywhere. And I had to take a deep breath before I could talk. Did Tyler admit that he liked me too? No, there's no way. What do you mean? I asked, fear laced in my voice. I was hoping that this wasn't a dream, or that I was dead and I was imagining the one thing I wanted the most. Without Tyler knowing, I pinched myself on the arm to make sure that this was real, that I was having this conversation with Tyler. Don't you get it? It's you, it's always been you, Tyler said, and before I could say something he cupped my face in his hands and kissed me. For a moment time stopped. I could only hear my heart beat and feel how fast it was going. I kissed him back and I felt the sparks that I so badly hoped to feel. It coursed my entire body and for a second I thought I was going to explode. I wrapped my arms around his neck and he wrapped his around my waist. Suddenly everything felt right. Being here with him was exhilarating and exciting. His hands set my body on fire. And I felt as if I couldn't get enough of him. I pulled him closer to me and his hands were tangled in my hair. He kissed me with such passion but so gently, almost as if he was afraid I would break in his arms. After what felt like hours, we pulled away and breathed heavily. The sparks were still coursing through my body and his fingers lightly traced my spine until they rested at my waist. You're mine, Emily, he said in a husky voice. His eyes were hungry and I could tell he was holding back on marking me. His eyes traveled from my eyes to my lips to my neck. He licked his lips and brought his gaze back to mine. He was waiting for my approval. This time I wasn't going to hold back, I was going to get what was mine. For the first time I wanted to be selfish. I was meant to be with Tyler and who knows how sooner we could have been together if it wasn't for Skyler. I lightly kissed his lips and pulled away just enough for him to hear me whisper. Then make me yours, I whispered. He gave one more kiss before his kiss trailed over my cheek, my jawline and finally to my neck. His hold on my waist tightened and I wrapped my arms around his neck, pulling him closer to me. He kissed my neck and lightly bit it before marking me. I felt the pain shoot up from my neck and darkness slowly took over me. Chapter 39, Emily's POV. The sun was hitting my face and I felt the comfy cushion begging me to stay a little longer. I heard someone whispering, and as much as I tried to ignore them, I couldn't. I slowly opened my eyes and found myself in my room. I looked over on the other side of the room and I saw Haley speaking on the phone with someone with her back to me. I glanced at the small clock on the nightstand and it read 9:30 am. I didn't remember coming back to the room last night, and I looked at the bathroom door to see if Skyler was there. But it was just me and Haley. Well, that's weird. Skyler's usually the one who hogs the bathroom by now. I didn't think much of it and quietly got up from my bed. I felt something sharp shoot up from my neck and I winced in pain. What the hell? I muttered. I touched the spot where it hurt and another sharp pain shot up. I quickly went to the bathroom and pulled my hair to the side so I could see my neck. And there it was, a mark. At first, I didn't remember how I got a mark, and then all the memories rushed back to me. My conversation with Tyler, the way he held me close to me and how tenderly he kissed me. He had waited for my approval to mark me, and once I gave him the go, everything went black. Which explains why I don't remember coming back to my room. Why was in my room? Skyler was mad at me and she had pushed me out of the room. I figured she didn't want me in here. I figured I'd just crash in the living room until the morning. I stood on the doorway and looked at Haley. She had finished talking but stayed on her phone. What happened last night? She must have figured I was still sleeping because she jumped at the sound of my voice and put her hand on my chest. Jesus Christ. Don't scare me like that, she said. Sorry, I said, giving her a small smile while tucking a strand of hair behind my ear. How did I end up here? I asked again when she didn't answer my question. She put her phone down and sat crisscrossed in the middle of her bed. You don't remember? She asked with a confused look on her face. Tyler brought back here after he found you in living room passed out. He was worried that you'd be uncomfortable, so he carried you back to the room, she said nonchalant. My heart swelled up knowing that Tyler had brought me back here and kept last night a secret. What about Skyler? I asked as I glanced at her bed. It was strange not having her here. We never really got along, but we always shared our mornings together. She wasn't happy about it, but I don't think she wanted you to sleep outside. She said I could tell she was hiding something. So where is she now? I asked as I walked over to my closet to pick out a fresh set of clothes. I don't know. I called her, but she wouldn't tell me where she is. I looked back at her and saw how worried she was. I put the clothes that I picked on my bed and sat next to her. I rubbed her back to try and soothe her, but I could feel how tense she was. Hey, maybe she needed some time alone. I doubt she would be okay with Tyler coming in with me in his arms, I said in a soft voice. I may not be as close to Skyler as she was, but if Haley was worried, I was worried too. I had offered to help find Skyler after I took my shower, and Haley looked relieved to know that I'd be there for her. I had forgotten about my mark and had taken a hair tie that Haley had and had tied my hair into a bun for my shower. Hey, what happened to your— Oh my God. I looked over at Haley and she had gotten out of bed and pointed at my neck. Oh my God. You're marked, she said in an excited voice. Oh no. Who marked you? She said, sitting down next to me and looking closer at my mark. You don't really know him, I said, hoping that she wouldn't put two and two together and realize that it was Tyler who marked me. So he's not from this pack? She asked in confusion. I shook my head and hoped that she would believe me. I was racking my brain trying to figure out what I could say. Haley always saw through my lies, but I didn't want to tell her that it was Tyler because I didn't know if he even wanted us to be public. We hadn't really talked about how we would do this, and I wanted to go over everything with him first before I told Haley. Well, spill the beans, she said. Let me take a shower first and then I'll explain everything, I said as I got up from the bed, picked up my clothes and made my way to the bathroom. It was the perfect excuse I could muster, and it gave me time to figure out what I was going to tell Haley. I let the cold water run through my body and relaxed as I felt my body release all the tensions. My thoughts wandered to yesterday and I could feel his lips against mine. The way his fingers trailed down my spine and how badly he wanted to mark me. I could feel the butterflies erupt on my stomach and I couldn't wait to see him again. When would I see him again? Before I could ruin my mood, I washed away the dirt and sweat from yesterday and finished taking my shower. I dried myself and put my clothes on. I decided to put on some black jeans and a black shirt. I let my hair down and tried to style it in a way that would hide my mark. I decided to tuck it behind my ear and it did a good job of hiding it. I stepped out of the bathroom and put on my Converse. Do you wear anything other than black? Haley said in a playful tone. I threw a pillow at her and laughed. Someone knocked on the door and I opened it since I was next to it. I thought it was Skyler at the door coming back to look for something, but I was wrong. Oh God, I was so very wrong. In the doorway stood Tyler in all his glory. He was wearing a black hoodie and his hair was wet, probably from also taking a shower. His cologne took over me and it took all my strength not to kiss him. Tyler, I said almost breathless. My heart was running miles a minute and I couldn't think straight. The butterflies in my stomach went everywhere and he took a step closer to me. Hey, he said in a low voice. His eyes bore into mine and I stood frozen. How could someone so perfect leave me so speechless? Haley's here, I said, looking her way. She had the pillow in her hands and she started at us with her mouth open like a fish. The pillow fell from her hands and her gaze went from me to Tyler and from Tyler to me. She knows. No way. No way, she said. Tyler's your mate, she said in an excited voice. Tyler looked at me and I gave him a small shrug. Surprise, I said, and hoped that Tyler would be okay with this. I trusted Haley with my secrets and she never once betrayed me. I just hoped this wouldn't come crashing down when Skyler finds out. Well, when she finds out. She came and gave me a hug and was telling me how happy she was for me. She then proceeded to tell Tyler that if he hurts me she will hunt him down. He gave her a smile and promised not to hurt me. So wait a minute. You didn't pass out in the living room yesterday? Haley asked, sitting down at the edge of my bed. I shook my head and felt a blush creeping up on my cheeks. She was with me, Tyler said, and put his arm around my shoulders, pulling me closer to him. He looked down at me with such love in his eyes that I wanted to stay here forever. I didn't want to deal with Skyler and listen to her yell at me at how I stole Tyler from her when he was mine all along. Well, that explains that, Haley said, standing up and grabbing her phone from her bed. I'm gonna go get some breakfast and I'll leave you two alone, she said, raising her eyebrows at me. I told her I'd meet her later and she left, leaving me and Tyler alone. As soon as the door closed, he bent down and kissed me. I smiled against his lips and wrapped my arms around his neck, kissing him back. He lightly pushed me against the wall and wrapped his arms around my waist. He pressed his body against mine and I could feel his heat radiating through his hoodie. My hands were tangled in his hair, and he let out a low groan, deepening the kiss. Whenever I was with him, time seemed to stop. Everything around me would disappear and all I could think about was him. His hands on my body, his soft lips with a hint of mint against mine. The way he kissed me as if the world was going to end. I had waited so long for this that I was scared it'd be over in the blink of an eye. His hands went under my shirt and his touch sent goosebumps all over my body. Whatever I did, it's like I couldn't get enough of him. I needed more of him. His lips went to my neck and he found my sweet spot. He kissed and bit it until he left a love mark. Everything he did was driving me crazy and I wanted more of him. My hands wandered through his body until they reached the bottom of his hoodie. I gave it a small tug to be able to take it off. Getting impatient, are we? He whispered in my ear, letting out a small chuckle. His lips pressed up against mine once again and he kissed me softly. He pulled away and rested his forehead against mine. Not here, he said in a low voice, and a blush crept up my cheeks. He pulled away just a bit so his eyes could find mine. He cupped my cheek and he let out another small chuckle. You're blushing, he said almost to himself. I didn't mean to, I wasn't. If you don't want to. I trailed off, embarrassed. No. That's not it. I do want to, I just have it pictured differently, he said sheepishly. Now it was his turn to blush. I gave him a small smile and looked at the ground. Can I see you tonight? He asked, grabbing my hand and intertwining our fingers together. Yeah, I gotta find Skyler, but I'll meet you at the backyard, where we had the full moon party, I asked. It's date, he said in a low voice before giving me one final kiss. Chapter 40. Riley's POV. I was starting to come back my senses and slowly woke up. I woken up in a strange room with nothing in it except black clothing that was hanging on the door frame. I made my way to the bathroom and washed my face and teeth. Once I got a good look at myself, I could see dried blood at the side of my face. What the heck? I got a washcloth and cleaned myself up. I grabbed the clothes from the door frame and proceeded to change. It was black jeans with a plain black loose t-shirt with a pair of black Dr. Martens. I fixed my hair up into a high ponytail and made my way out the door. Down the hall I could see Jason, with a worried look in his face. Once he saw me, he ran my way and pulled me to an empty hallway. "Where have you been? I've been looking everywhere for you," he said in a hushed voice. "I don't remember. All I know is that I woke up in a strange room and that we have training today," I said in a flat tone. Jason scrunched up his eyebrows and looked me up and down. "Are you feeling okay?" he asked with a concerned tone. "Yep." He looked around the hallway once more before talking in a whisper. "Did something happen?" he asked, worried. The bags under his eyes were pretty noticeable, and I cocked my head to the side and let out a small laugh. "Did something happen to you? Looks like you haven't gotten a good sleep." He just stared at me as if I was the one who was crazy. I sighed, grabbed his arm, and I started to make my way to the training arena. "Come on, we're gonna be late for training," I spoke as a matter of fact. He pulled his arm back and took a few steps away from me. "Riley, were you by any chance with Russell last night?" I stared at Jason with a confused look on my face. "I don't think so. I don't really remember. I must have been tired and went to bed early," I said, shrugging my shoulders. "What was with him this morning?" He was never one to be so paranoid as to where I was the previous day. I didn't let it get to me for the rest of the day since we had a long day ahead of us. We were still working on controlling my energy, but we were getting nowhere, and something in the back of my mind was telling me that today is the day we're going to do it. Adam's POV. I've been in the office for a few weeks now. I can't sleep, I can't eat, all I can think about is Riley. Is she okay? Is she safe? The last time I saw, I told her that I knew she was planning something, to see if she would tell me what was going on. Truth is, I don't really know if she is planning something. I've noticed that Tyler and Emily sometimes go out late at night, but I never thought too much of it. Tyler had a huge crush on Emily, and it was noticeable that she liked him too. I keep going over our contracts with the Lightwood Pack to see if there's something I missed, something I could have leverage on to get Riley back. But I had nothing. The contract was covered from head to toe. The papers were scattered all over the desk, and I pushed them away from the desk and slammed my fist on the hard wood. I racked the fingers through my hair and took a deep breath. I heard a knock on the door and told the person to come in. "Brought you some food," the voice said, which I immediately recognized as Tyler. "I'm not hungry," I said as he put the plate in front of me. He sat down on one of the chairs inside. "Look, I don't know what you're going through, but I do know that you need to eat something. You're getting weaker every day, and it's going to do you any good if you want to save Riley," he said in a serious tone. I knew he was right. He was my best friend after all. But I just couldn't find the energy to eat. "What if I can't get her back?" I said in a low voice. My faith was going away, and the more I thought about it, the more I would realize that there was no way of getting her back. "You will, and you have a whole pack behind you to help you. But you need to help yourself first," he said in a soft voice. "I know she's planning something. I wanted to see if I could get Tyler to tell he if she really was planning something. He's always been one to call my bluff, but I haven't been the same since Riley stayed over there. So I took my chance." "What makes you think that?" Tyler says, rearranging himself on the chair. "It's not like her to not do something, I just don't know what it is," I said, running my fingers through my hair. I had a gut feeling that I was running out of time, and if I didn't do something soon, it could end up bloody. The last thing I need right now is to lose her. "Look, why don't you let me figure this out? You need to stay here and hold down the fort, because the last thing we need is your dad finding out that you've messing with the Lightwood Pack," Tyler said in a serious tone. I kept my gaze on him just to see if I could get something that would tell me that he knows something, but I got nothing. I took a deep breath and nodded my head. He was right again. It's bad enough that my dad thinks I'm not fit to lead this pack. The last thing he needs to know is this. Tyler got up and walked out the door. I stayed there thinking about what I could do to get Riley back. I decided to go outside and get some fresh air since sitting in the office wasn't gonna help. It felt good to be outside and feel the breeze. I could feel myself getting more relaxed, and I could hear myself think. I took a walk through the woods, and my mind took me to when Riley was still here with me. Everything seemed so simple then. I didn't have to worry about Jackson or Kevin, and I could let the one person who I loved more than anything get to know me. I kept thinking about what I could have done to change things, but even then maybe this still would have happened. I kept Riley out of and never once put her in danger, but they still managed to find her and use her against me. It was then I decided that I needed to do something. I couldn't just stand by and wait for a miracle to happen. If I wanted Riley back, I had to do it on my own terms. I had no idea what Russell was planning, or if she was even safe, but something had to be due. Of course, I couldn't anything now with the state that I'm in. I needed to get my strength back to be able to fight, and I needed to form a team that I knew would have my back no matter what. It would take some time, but I knew what needed to be done. Just hold on, Riley. I'm coming for you. Chapter 41, Riley's POV. We were in the middle of training when Russell had come in to see our progress. How's she doing? He asks Jason as I drink water and pat my face with a towel to get rid of the sweat. Good. She wants to go over controlling her energy, but we've done enough for today. He says as he chugs down his bottled water. We had been practicing nonstop since I woke up in another room. Jason kept telling me to take it slow, but it was as if I wasn't tired. Bits and pieces of the day before came to mind, but I never remembered what happened or how I even ended up in that room with blood on the side of my head. I didn't tell Jason this because I didn't know how he was going to react, but I could tell that something was wrong. Every now and then I could the energy circulating through my body and my heart rate would slow down, almost as if everything was in slow motion. When we had reached the training arena, everything changed. The only thing I could focus on was the target, and finding a way to take it down. The adrenaline was running through my veins and I felt myself chasing that feeling. There were a few times where Jason had to stop me because I kept pushing past my limit. It was then I would calm down and take a break. Let's practice it, Russell said. Sir, with all due respect, we don't even know how to do this. Jason perked up. Russell raised an eyebrow at this and chuckled. Do I need to repeat myself? Russell asked in a deep voice. Jason lowered his head and shook it. No, sir, he said in a low voice. I cleared my throat and Russell averted his attention to me. I'm ready, I said. I could feel the energy coursing through my veins just waiting to be let out. It was like an itch that I couldn't get rid of and I needed to feel it. I needed to know how powerful I was. We don't even know how to make this work, Jason said, and Russell chuckled. We don't, but Riley does. You see, Jason, not everything can be taught. And with Riley's power, she can only teach herself, he said with a smirk on his face. She'll know what to do, he said, walking out with Jason by his side. The arena has 2 floors. The first one was the training area that was big enough to fit 100 people. It also had a metal table where all the weapons were put, and at the end of the training area were the targets. It the type of targets you used at a gun range and the ones you used to shoot arrows. Russell found this to be better than mannequins. On the second floor was a viewing area guarded by a railing. Russell would watch me there where Jason taught me many things, and it's now where he stands with Jason watching me. I stood in the middle of the arena and faced the targets, focusing on them and nothing else. There was a voice inside my head telling me to relax and feel the energy coursing through me. As I closed my eyes and took deep breaths, I was suddenly aware of everything around me. I could hear the slow beating of my heart. I could hear Jason's breathing and I could feel Russell's gaze on me. The energy was getting stronger and stronger until I couldn't hold it in anymore. I let out a scream and a force of energy left my body. When I opened my eyes, the targets were completely destroyed and scattered all over the room. I looked up at Russell and he was clapping his hands while Jason had a terrified look on his face. I smirked at Jason and looked back at the targets. This feeling of being was powerful was something that I never had before. And now that I got it, I wanted to keep chasing that feeling. And nobody would get in the way of that. After that, Russell had excused Jason and told me to meet him at the office. I went to my room, cleaned up and made my way to Russell's office. I knocked on his door and he told me to come in. I took a seat in front of his desk and noticed a couple of syringes in the desk. They looked familiar, and before I could let my thoughts wander to them, Russell had snapped me out of it. Riley, we did a lot of progress today. I'm very proud of you, he said and gave me a smile. That was the most exhilarating things that has ever happened to me, I said, remembering that feeling I felt a few moments ago. I bet. You must be feeling a little tired though, he said, getting out of his chair and walking over to the front of the desk. A little bit, but it's nothing that a little sleep wouldn't fix, I said. I started to make my way to the door when Russell stopped me. Before you go, there's something that needs to be done. I turned around and saw that he was taking a black velvety box. Take a seat, Riley, he said. I didn't think much of it, so I sat in the chair that was in front of his chest. With great power comes great responsibility. and it is my job to ensure that you embrace all your powers. But, of course, we can't do that with a little help. He says this as he opens the box and takes out a syringe. What is that? I ask in a worried voice. Whatever was inside that syringe could not be good. For a moment I had forgotten on whose side I was and for who I was doing this for. Why was Adam so distant in my mind? I had been so focused on becoming stronger and faster that I let my true intentions go away. Something wasn't sitting with me right, and I started to panic. Doesn't matter, Riley. What matters is that you remember your place, he said in a serious tone. He started to walk towards me with the syringe and I felt frozen to my seat. Look, whatever that is, I'm sure I don't need it. I'm on your team, remember? I'm doing everything you asked for. I got up from my chair and started to walk backwards to the door while keeping an eye on Russell. Before I knew it, someone grabbed from behind, and Russell put a washcloth over my mouth. It's not good enough. Before stabbing the syringe in my neck, I tried to scream, but darkness started to take over me. I have no idea how much time had passed when I started to wake up. I was groggy and everything looked blurry. I tried to move, but my body felt so heavy, and when I looked down I was tied in a chair. I still had the washcloth in my mouth, and I looked around me and saw Kevin and Russell talking in the corner of Russell's office. I tried to focus my vision, but it wasn't working. I knew I had to get out of there. I gathered all the strength I could and tried to move the chair in the direction of the door. I could barely move it an inch when Russell and Kevin looked over to me. I see you're awake. He walked over to me and crouched down so we were eye level. I told Jason that we weren't going to practice for a few days and to keep guard outside. That way he doesn't think something happened to you, and I have you all to myself without any interruptions. He gave me a wicked smile and walked over to the desk. You see, I love having you on my team. But I know you've been sneaking off to see Adam. How stupid of you to think that I wouldn't find out. He shook his head and chuckled. My heart clenched and a tear rolled down my cheek. I'm sorry, Adam. He took another syringe and walked over to me. You will be my perfect weapon, and nothing is going to stop me. And when your little friends come to rescue you, you will be on my side and you won't even notice. Another tear rolled down my cheek before he put the syringe and everything went black again. This happened for a couple of days. Every single syringe was injected into my body, and every time I felt my true intentions slip away. When the final syringe was injected, my whole body shut down and I was taken back to my room. I stayed there for 3 days, and when I finally woke up, I had forgotten all about the plan and Adam. Chapter 42. Adam's POV. I paced back and forth around the office. On my desk sat an uneaten sandwich that Tyler had brought me in attempts to make me eat. I took a small bite out of it before I felt like I was going to throw up. Tyler and Emily had gone out to check up on Riley since we had both agreed it wasn't safe for us anymore. I didn't want to send them, but I was going crazy not knowing how was Riley. Ever since this whole mess started, I got weaker and weaker by the day. The thought of being separated by Riley was killing me. I put all my trust in her when she said yes to staying with Russell, but who knew what Russell was going to do? Riley might have had good intentions, but Russell's not the type of guy to let things pass. I try to think about all the moments we had together to keep myself from going insane, and it always ends up the same way. I messed up and I should have protected Riley better than I did. If anything happens to her, it'll be my fault. And I'm not sure I can live with that. Before I could keep myself in my head, someone barged into the office and I looked up to see Tyler and Emily out of breath. Something's wrong, Tyler says, out of breath. I hand him a bottle of water. What happened? What's wrong? I ask in a frenzy. Jason hasn't seen her all week. And the last time he saw, he said she was acting weird. Emily says, sitting down and catching her breath. How'd you end up talking to Jason? I ask in confusion. I knew he's one of the good guys, but he was also one of Russell's close guards and fighter. It didn't make sense how they would get close to him. He came to us actually. Tyler says. He thinks if we come up with a good plan, we can save her before Russell tries something. As Tyler says this, my brain is going 10 miles per hour. I thought we had a plan. I ask, sitting down and taking all this information in. It's not going to work, not without Riley. Right now we need to trust Jason and hope that we can get to her on time. Tyler says, and Emily nods her head. Okay, let's do this. I say with a serious face. How do we get to him? I ask. I start to think about all the things that need to be done, but how are we supposed to do it with someone who we can barely see? Well, we could go outside and talk to him, Emily says with a small smile on her face. He may or may not have come with us, she says with a small chuckle. The moment she says this, I make my way outside and see Jason standing there with his hands in his pockets. I wanted to scream at him for not taking care of Riley, but nothing comes out. I open and close my mouth trying to say something, but nothing comes out. I know, Jason says, but we're gonna get her. Promise you that. With that he comes over and gives me a hug while patting me on the back. Typical guy hug. I do the same and show him the way to the office. What happened? I ask Jason once we're all hydrated and ready to take this on. To be honest, I don't know. One night, Russell wanted to meet her in the office. Probably to talk about her progress in her training. And next thing I know she's walking out of her room with the same clothes she wore the day before. She even looks sweaty. I tried asking her about it, but she just brushed me off. Jason runs a hand over his hair and I take a deep breath trying to process all of this as fast as I can. During practice, she was better than the day before. I mean, she was hitting every target and she wasn't even tired. It's like she was pushing herself without the effect of wearing herself out. Next thing I know, Russell has her try something new and all the weapons in the training arena hit the target. I've never seen her like that. Jason shakes his head and my head is filled with millions of questions, but I let Jason finish. And ever since then I haven't seen her. Whatever's happening can't be good, Jason says and leans on the wall for support since all the chaos were taken. She's been training. For what? I ask. I knew Russell wanted her for her powers, but why train her with targets and weapons? He wants her to be his perfect weapon, Jason says, and we all face him. Perfect weapon? As in she'll kill everything in sight weapon? Emily asks worried. Jason nods his head and suddenly this whole plan got more complicated than we thought. How'd that happen? Tyler asks. I'm not sure, but Russell must have known something was up, Jason says. Emily and Tyler went to get some food and Jason stayed behind to help out with the plan. There's no way we're gonna get out of this alive, I say once Jason tells me what he has in mind. It's a suicide mission, but right now, it's the best one we've got. We don't include your pack in this, just us. If anything happens, we make sure that your pack stays safe, Jason says looking at the map splayed out on the desk. It was a map of the forest. We calculated the distance between the pack house and Russell's pack house. It was pretty far away. We don't think they'd be able to find our pack house. We tried out different strategies on how to take Riley out of there without any casualties, but once Jason explained how tight security is over there, it would be impossible not get out of there without a fight. We went through different scenarios over and over again. Once Emily and Tyler came back, they gave out their own ideas and Jason gave them feedback as to whether it would work or not. After multiple hours, we finally had reached our plan. It was plain and simply really, Jason would find us a way in and take us straight to Riley or Russell, whichever came first. You do realize this isn't going to be pretty, I say and look over at everyone to make sure they're with me on this. We know. But I'd rather save Riley than lose her, Emily says. I could hear the fear in her voice. She knows the consequences of this, but the way she stepped up to do this is impressive. We decide to do this in a couple of days so everyone can rest up and get ready. I tell Jason he can sleep in my room since I don't really use it anymore, but he decides to stay here. Whatever happens, I'm going to do my best to get you all out of there alive. Even if it kills me, he says in a serious tone. Thank you, I tell him in a small voice. For the first time since all of this happened, I feel tired. I can feel the weight standing on top of my shoulders trying to push me down. And for the time in a long time, I finally get some sleep. Emily's POV. Once we leave Adam's office, we stay in silence. Neither of us know what to say. The one thing we both know is that we're probably not going to make it out of there alive. It's the air and we can all feel it. Hey, Tyler says, snapping me out of my thoughts. I look at him and he gives me a small smile. Can we go outside for a minute? I kinda need some fresh air, he says in a small voice. I nod at him and he holds my hand while we make our way out. It's pretty dark and chilly, but I highly doubt both of us feel it. We sit down on the steps and I look at the ground thinking of something to say. Whatever happens, promise me you'll be safe, Tyler says in almost a whisper, scared as if someone is going to hear us. You say that like we're going to die, I say in an attempt to make a joke. I chuckle and look into his eyes. He's scared just like me, and when he doesn't say anything I break down. Tyler wraps his arms around me and he doesn't say anything. We stay like that for a long time. Chapter 43 Riley's POV. It was clear now I was straying away from the mission and it was time to make things right. That morning I lay in bed staring at the ceiling wondering how I could be so blind. Adam had betrayed me in the first place, he had lied to me and I forgave him for what? Because he was my mate. No. Russell was right. This is the right choice and in order for me to achieve my true powers, I can't have any distractions. I was currently in Russell's office with Kevin by my side. Russell was explaining to us how Jason hadn't come back last night, and how he suspected that Jason had gone to my old pack house. Of course he would. He was Russell's favorite guard. Why wouldn't he also try to stab me in the back? So what's the plan? I said, interrupting Russell. They both looked at me but didn't say anything. I'm assuming there's a plan. I say, stating the obvious. For now there's no plan. You'll continue your training and if anything suspicious pops up we'll take it from there. Russell said, watching us carefully. Since Jason wasn't here anymore, Kevin would be in charge of our training sessions. You'll train harder than you ever have. Russell said in a serious tone and in response I gave him a nod. Russell dismissed us and Kevin and I were in our way to the training arena. Something in the back of my mind was telling me that something wasn't adding up, but I pushed it aside. This wasn't the time to let my thoughts wander. I had to focus on my training. That afternoon, Kevin was having me do everything. From shooting blanks to focusing all my energy on the target. I was exhausted but he kept yelling at me to keep pushing and working harder. At one point I got fed up and took a knife to his throat. Yell at me one more time and I'll slit your throat in a second. I said with gritted teeth. That's cute. He said, grinning. I furrowed my eyebrows and in that second, he punched me in the stomach and pushed me. I fell to the floor gasping for breath and Kevin took the knife and walked over to me. You think you can threaten me? Don't forget I was the one who tortured you, princess. He said in a serious tone and slid the knife across my cheek in a fast motion. After that he left and I stood there holding my cheek. In that moment I remembered how worried Adam was that Kevin had hurt me, and how even though he could barely stand he pulled me into his arms. Why am I thinking about this? I got up and went to the bathroom to clean my cut. Just as I was going to put a band-aid on it, the light went off and an explosion was heard coming from outside. There was silence and the emergency lights came on. They were red and even though you couldn't see clearly, the whole point of it was to direct you outside as fast as possible. I slowly opened the door and poked my head out. There was smoke everywhere but no one was walking down the hallway. I took the blade that was in the side pocket and slowly made my way out the bathroom and through the hallway. I was startled when Kevin came up behind me and tapped me in the shoulder. What the hell, Kevin? I whispered, slapping his arm. He rolled his eyes at me. What the hell is going on? He asked through gritted teeth. I don't know, I was in the bathroom cleaning the cut you gave me. I said and continued walking down the hall. People started to leave their rooms and go out the nearest exit. Some of them were panicking but other members of the pack made sure to get them out as soon as possible. As we kept walking someone pulled me back by my arm and put their hand around my mouth. I tried to scream and kick but they had a strong hold on me. Out of the corner of my eye, I could see Jason knocking Kevin out and pushing Kevin by his legs and locking him in the nearest room. Jason even broke the handle of the door to assure that he wouldn't leave. I mimicked what Kevin had done to me and I elbowed the person who had a hold on me in the stomach. In an instant I turned around and pressed the blade to their throat. My breath caught in my throat once I saw who it was. Adam? I asked in disbelief. He was pressed up against the wall and our bodies were pressed up against each other. His hair was disheveled and the bags under his eye were prominent. He gave a small smile and took the blade out of my hand just as quickly as I pressed it up against him. What are you doing here? I asked and took a step back from me. A flash of hurt danced across his eye but it left as quickly as it came. We're here to rescue you, he said, taking my hand. Come on, we have to go now if we want this to work. I retrieved my hand from his and started to shake my head. No, I said in a serious tone. I'm not leaving with you, I said, looking into his eyes. I could tell he was taken aback but I wasn't going to leave with him when I was so close of unlocking all my powers. Riley, you're falling into his trap. This is exactly what he wants you to do. What happened to finding a way out of here and coming back to me? Adam was screaming now. People were still leaving but none of them were focused on what was going on around them. Adam, it's too late, we have to go. Jason spoke up and stood by Adam. I looked at Jason in disbelief. It's too late. No. I'm finally at a place where I'm doing what I want. I can become more powerful than you would ever believe. And I'm not gonna let anyone come in the way of that. With that, I stormed off and went to find Russell. Jason tried to pull me back by my arm, but I turned around and punched him in the face. He stumbled back to the floor and held a hand up to lip and looked back at it to see blood. You really want to do this? Jason said, standing up. I cracked my neck and took out my blade. Now this is going to be fun. Chapter 44, Adam's POV. The scene that was unfolding in front of me was one that I would have never imagined. Riley was fighting like she was a weapon. I couldn't understand what was happening or why was she acting like this. I stood frozen in my spot and watched them go at each other. Jason was doing a good job of evading Riley's hits, but she was going too fast. It was only a matter of time before she actually hurt him. Just as she took out her blade, something hit the back of her head and she fell to the floor. Right behind her was Emily holding a brick in her hand. Sorry, I didn't know what else to do, she said with an apologetic smile and threw the brick on the floor. We all looked at each other, not knowing what to do next, until Tyler spoke up. Well, since our plan took a turn, why don't we put Riley into a room and deal with this Russell guy first? Clearly, it seems like the easiest way to go since we have a murder weapon here. We all agreed. Emily tied her wrist and Jason was the one who took charge and carried her. I know a room, but we have to move fast, he says, leading us to the room. We reached a room that looks like a training arena. There's all sorts of weapons laid out on a table, and there's several targets lined up on a wall in front of us. What is this place? Asked Emily as she looked around. It's where Riley trained, said Jason, putting Riley down on a corner of the room. Holy Jesus. Okay, let's talk about the obvious elephant in the room. Why the hell is Riley acting like this? Emily said, crossing her arms across her chest. Tyler stood next to her in a protective manner. I used to do that with Riley, protect her from anything that might come towards us. But the one thing I couldn't protect her from was the truth. The one thing that broke us apart. As I looked at Riley, I started thinking of the possibilities that we might actually save her. What if whatever happened to Riley was something that we couldn't fix? What then? Were we supposed to kill her if it came to that? Would I even survive without my mate? I closed my eyes in order to stop these thoughts from running through my mind. I have to take things one step at a time. That's the only way we can make it out of this. I think Russell injected something into her, Jason said, walking over to Riley. We all followed him and he moved Riley's next to the side. We saw 3 dots in her neck that were starting to bruise like a shot. I have no idea what it is, but I think it's what made Riley turn like this. One night she just disappeared, and when I asked her about it she just brushed it off. I don't think she even knew what happened to her, Jason said, standing up. How do we fix it? Tyler asked. Jason shrugged his shoulders and we all looked defeated. Wait, if they injected something into her, there must be something that can reverse it back. Like an antidote for a cure, Emily said. Why would there be an antidote? I asked. Think about it. If this is what's making Riley the perfect weapon, then Russell must be the one who's providing the injections. Which explains why she has 3 bruises. The more injections she gets, the more powerful she is. But what if she gets to be more powerful than Russell? Obviously, he wouldn't let that happen, so when he injects the antidote into her, the weaker she'll be and the more control Russell will have over her, Tyler said, finishing her sentence. Exactly, Emily said. Suddenly we heard clapping in the room, and we all turned around to find Russell and Jackson watching down on us from the 2nd floor of the training arena. She's not wrong, said Russell with a smirk on his face. The only flaw in your plan is the antidote is far away from here. You were just a little bit too late, he said. Tyler stepped in front of Emily and I looked at Riley and saw that she was still unconscious. Take care of them, he said to Jason, and 2 more people appeared at his side. Crap, I said under my breath. They jumped from the 2nd floor to the 1st one. I've been waiting for this moment a long time, said Jason to me. Luckily, the weapons were on our side of the room, so I quickly took what I could. Some ninja stars and a dagger. Tyler and Jason also chose their weapons. Let's get this show on the road. Emily, it's up to you to find that antidote, Jason said to her. I didn't turn to look at her, but I knew from her silence that she was scared. Just like us. And then we all started fighting. Jason and I went head to head. I hadn't fought in a long time, so I was mostly dodging his hits. I was too weak to activate my wolf, but I gathered enough strength to have my wolf eyes. Although it didn't make me stronger, I could see Jackson's hit almost in slow motion and it made it better to fight. I was able to dodge his hits and hit him back. I used the dagger so slice his skin and I was beating him. Slowly but surely. We hit each other back and forth and we were both bleeding. I gathered as much strength I could and pushed him into the wall. I didn't realize I stabbed him until he started bleeding from his mouth. I took the blade out of him and he fell to the ground. I was so immersed in fighting with Jackson that I didn't help Tyler or Jason. I looked back to find Tyler crouching over Jason's body. The other fighters were dead. I ran to them and saw that Jason was bleeding too much. He was breathing heavily, but I knew he wasn't going to make it. It's here. The antidote's still here. There's no way he knew we were coming. It must be in his office. Jason said, struggling. It's okay, we'll take care of it. You did good, Jason. I told him as his body went paler. He let out one last breath and closed his eyes. Tyler and I stayed there for a few minutes. The reality of the situation was just too much to bear. But we needed to find Emily and the antidote. We needed to save Riley. We looked at each other and gave a small nod. We made our way to find Emily in Russell's office, but we had no idea where to go, where Russell's office was or where Emily was. We started walking down a hallway, and we checked every room carefully just so we didn't miss the office. The pack house was completely empty after the bomb had gone off, but we weren't sure if there were other people around waiting to attack. We walked for what felt like hours and we still couldn't find the office or Emily. Chapter 45. Emily's POV. After Jason had told me that it was up to me to find the antidote, I left Riley where she was and ran down the hallway as fast as I could to figure out where this antidote might be. I kept racking my brain for anything, but I came up short. Could Russell have an office where he would keep the antidote? Maybe there's a shack somewhere on the outskirts of the pack where he kept it. Could it be in the training arena? Or is it really far away from here and we really were too late? I had no answers, and it's not like I can go back and ask those guys to tell me if they know anything about where the antidote might be. Riley's life was in my hands now, and as much as I would love to play hero, I had no idea where to begin looking. I went down several halls and entered many rooms until I found myself at a dead end. I hit the wall out of frustration and there was a hollow sound. My breathing stopped for a moment. I pressed my ear against the wall and hit it again, and the sound came back hollow. Although it was drywall, there was no way I could break that with my bare hands. I looked around for anything that might give me leverage, but sadly there weren't any axes hanged up on the walls in case of an emergency. I entered a room that was down the hall and began searching for anything sharp. The room was pretty empty, except for a bed and a nightstand. I quickly looked in the nightstand and found a small dagger, which almost looked like a letter opener. Well, this would have to do. I went back to the dead end and started to pierce the wall, and a little bit of wall came off. It would take some time to actually make a hole big enough to find out what's behind it, but I had no other choice. Even though I wasn't sure if the antidote was here, I needed to try. After what seemed like forever, I finally made a hole big enough to see what was behind it. Sure enough, there was a small briefcase in there. I started to pick at the wall with the letter opener in my hands, not caring if the wood splinters were slicing my skin. I got the briefcase out and opened it. Theirs was only one syringe that had a green liquid in it. Green usually means antidote, right? I picked it up, and at the bottom of the syringe was the word antidote. Geez, who's the idiot that would put a label on this? I said. The same idiot who's gonna kill you. A voice whispered in my ear as something sharp pressed up against my throat. Come on, honey. We don't have enough time. Pick up the briefcase, and if you behave, I won't slit your throat. The voice, which I recognized was Russell's, said. I followed his instructions. We started walking down the hall again. We made some turns and kept walking down more halls until we reached what I assumed was his office. He slashed my hand and I screamed in pain. The cut was burning my arm and I fell down and put my hand over it to ease the pain. Russell knelt down in front of me and placed the knife under my chin. Bleach can hurt pretty bad, right? He said with a smirk on his face while tears streamed down my face. You try anything, and I mean anything, and I will kill you slowly. I'll cut, poke and stab that body of yours with this knife and bleach. It'll hurt so bad you'll wish you were dead, he said in a serious tone. With that, he got up and put my arms behind my back, tying them up. They're gonna find me. And when they do, they'll kill you and we'll save Riley, I said through gritted teeth. He chuckled and sat down in the chair that was behind his desk. Adam's POV. We were walking down the hall when we heard a scream. Emily. We both said at the same time. We started running down the halls when we came face to face with a room that had double doors. This is it, this is his office, I said in a low voice. Tyler opened the door and there was Russell standing in front of his desk with a knife pressed up against Emily's throat. Emily, Tyler said and held a tight grip on his hand so that she wouldn't go near her. Stay right there or she dies, screamed Russell. Emily's face was red and tears were silently streaming down her face. Let her go, she has nothing to do with this, said Tyler. But you see, she has everything to do with this. Your precious girl here found the antidote. But without her you won't know where it is. Now you have two choices. You can either let Riley and me go and save your girl or you take your chances on finding the antidote and save Riley and I kill her, he said. I looked around trying to find anything that would possibly tell me where the antidote is. Although Tyler and I had our weapons, we couldn't do anything without hurting Emily. I see Riley's not with you. I choose quickly if you don't want her waking up. You can only be unconscious for so long, he said. You little dash, Tyler said, storming towards him. Russell ran his knife across Emily's cheek and she screamed. You don't want me to kill your little pet now, do we? He said, and Emily thrashed in his arms. What the hell did you do to her? Something sharp poked at my back and a voice spoke up. There's no way out, Adam, Riley said. I looked over at Tyler and I shook my head. Even though Riley was on the enemy's side, we couldn't risk hurting her either. Without her, Russell might as well kill Emily. Riley stepped in front of me with the knife pointing at my chest. Let me go and save Emily, she said, looking straight into my eyes. You don't want this, I told her, trying to reason with her. Remember when you used to sneak out and meet me at the lake? I told you I was going to get you out of here and you tried to push me away, but I came back. I came back because you can't push me away no matter how hard you try. For a second, something passed through Riley's eyes and she lowered the knife just the tiniest bit. I furrowed my eyebrows a bit and just like that she went back to the Riley she was now. Oh God, not this again, Russell said. I looked over at Emily and she took the opportunity to kick Russell in his shin with the back of her foot, and she fell to the ground before the knife got here. Tyler lunged forward and cut Russell's arm and he let go of the knife. I slapped Riley's knife out of her hand and pushed her into the wall. She brought her knee up to my stomach and that sent me on my back. She straddled me and got hold of the knife and brought it down on me. I dodged it at the last second and punched her in the face. Damn it, I didn't want to do that. Without thinking, I grabbed the knife and stabbed Russell in the back. He screamed in pain and fell on his knees. Crap, I hope that saves us some time. Tyler quickly cut Emily's restraints and before Riley got back up, I grabbed her arms. Let me go, she thrashed and kicked at my legs. Emily, hurry up, I said, feeling my grip loosening up. She quickly got the antidote that was under Russell's desk and injected it in her neck. Riley's breathing started to slow down and I laid her down on the floor. Her eyes were closed and all we could do was wait. Behind us, Russell started laughing. You think the antidote's gonna save her? Ha! You don't get a whiff of power and not crave it again. Let's see what you'll do then, Russell said with blood running down his mouth. Guess we'll just have to wait and see, Tyler said, and he removed the knife from his back and stabbed him in the chest. Russell slumped forward, marking the end of his life. Riley groaned and we all stood over here watching her slowly open her eyes. She sat up and looked over at us. She brought her hand to her lip and looked at the small drop of blood on her fingers. Did you punch me? She said, looking at me. Yes, I said in a slow voice, not knowing what Riley was in front of me. You came back for me. Her voice broke a little and she got up and wrapped her arms around me. My Riley was back. I wrapped my arms around tightly as she cried into my arms. I always did, I said into her ear. Epilogue. Riley's POV. A few months after Adam saved me, we were all back at the pack. Emily was in the hospital for a few days so that the nurses could take care of her cuts. My nose wasn't broken, but it did bruise pretty bad. Adam kept apologizing for it even though I told him I deserved it. We still couldn't explain how that one antidote worked, but we decided that we would leave it in the past. We buried Jason in the back of the pack house and I found myself standing across his grave almost every day. Jason had become important to me. He had my back and he had become a close friend of mine. He was the only one I could trust, and I never got to thank him for all the things he did for me. Kevin was never found, and as much as I wanted to track him down and make him pay for everything I went through, Adam would tell me that it was best to leave it aside. He couldn't take us on his own, and his pack was long gone by now. We were all currently in the backyard staring at the moonlight. Emily was wrapped up in Tyler's arms, and I was sitting down next to Adam. "What are you thinking about?" he says, tucking a strand of hair behind my ear. I look over at him and see that the dark circles under his eyes have gone away, and his eyes were shining as bright as the moon. I say, giving him a small smile. Before he can say anything else, I kiss him and lay my head against his shoulders. I kept replaying all of our moments before everything went down. The day we met, when I first met his dad, our detention together, and how ridiculous I was about the whole heat thing. He was absolutely perfect, and I still couldn't believe he came back for me. What I never told Adam was that I was conscious when Russell told Adam that I would crave that power again. I didn't want something else to be fixed, I just wanted everything to be over. But how do I tell him that Russell was right? That I started to crave for that power, that feeling of euphoria? How do I tell him that each day they get stronger and stronger? The video ends here, but Riley and Adam's adventure has just begun. Subscribe to continue the journey with them.